Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about the Omega DeVille Prestige, and we're going to be talking about one in an unworn condition at that. Now, stick around to find out what makes this watch so prestigious, and for a hint, it's not the price point. Welcome back everybody. Like I said, today we're going to be talking about this Omega DeVille. Now this is actually a current production model. It was released back in 2016, but the card that we have on this watch is dated in 2020, so it is very fresh off the factory. Fresh off the press, as they would say in a lot of other industries, but there are some really key features about this watch that make it a great piece to today's collections. Now, for starters, it is more of a dress watch, right? It has some somewhat sporty features to it, but it's really primarily meant more for like that casual wear or more formal setting. Now, if you're familiar with dress watches and just watchmaking history, you'll know that the dress watches have historically always been slightly smaller. And so most of the watches that we find out there that kind of fall in that dress watch category are, from, decades prior that had smaller watches that nowadays with the larger 40 millimeters, mid-high 40 watches that we are, accustomed to seeing and wearing, having a watch that's in like the lower 30s, it's kind of a big gap, even if you're going for something a little more formal. Well, Omega kind of beefed it up a little bit. This watch comes in a 39.5 millimeter size. It's roughly the same size as the modern day Cellinis, of course, at a fraction of the price. But the watch itself is made out of stainless steel, and it does have a stainless steel bezel on it. Now, of course, I'm going to go into some of the technical specs of how the watch works, but I'd kind of like to touch on the design. Omega really went with like a vintage throwback kind of theme on this watch. You'll notice that it's a very plain dial. It's clean, it's simple. There are two complications on it. You'll notice that it has a running seconds off at 9 and actually a power reserve here at the bottom at 6 o'clock. Now, I guess it does have 3 complications. There is a date over here at 3, but it is an automatic movement. So you've probably heard me speak on these power reserves. I personally am a huge fan. But going back to the style, you'll notice that they use a font on the hour markers. It alternates between, dot markers at the odd numbers, and we actually have the Roman numerals at all of the evens. So the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12 are going to have Roman numerals. Well, the font that they chose to use is really like commemorative of the style and fonts that they would use back in the 50s. You'll also notice it's got the Dauphine hands. That's also going to be something that's a little retro that adds to the style. But of course, the watch itself has a bunch of technological advancements. The watch wasn't made in the 50s, so the internals of this watch, you'll find some more cutting edge technology. It is going to have the coaxial escapement, one of the things that Omega is kind of known for in the movement side of the watch. Of course, the whole thing can be handled just from the crown. You're going to be winding, setting, adjusting the time. It does have a quick set feature for the date, so you don't have to wind it all the way around or go back from 9 to 12. It's very fast to wake up on March 1st and just adjust the day. The movement that it has in it is going to be a 26-27 caliber movement from Omega, and it's based on, I want to say, the 2500, but it added a couple of elements. So the base model is for a chronometer, or not a chronometer, a chronograph. Of course, you'll notice there is no stopwatch function on this. They adjusted and added some elements to the movement, which of course allowed for us to incorporate these running seconds. The base movement kept it just a central second hand, and then of course the power reserve function, one of my notable favorites. Now, the watch I said was a 39.5 millimeter size, so it's right in that sweet spot, but the lug width is going to be 20 millimeters. We're constantly getting calls from people asking what the lug width of the watch is. And when people are asking that, they're generally anticipating acquiring another strap or bracelet for the watch. So 20 millimeters is one of the most, popular, if you will. It's one of the most common sizes that you'll find in our industry. But I mean, even on the Omega website, because it's a current production model, you can find it on there. You'll find that the MSRP is higher than what we're listing it for. But you'll notice that they've got like some 60 something different options you can have for the strap. And and that's just from Omega. Those are authentic Omega straps. If you kind of bust open into the aftermarket strap world where you can get any material, any stitching pattern, any color, I mean, the options are truly limitless. And of course, it does have this really subtle, they call it like a vintage gray kind of dial. So having this gray leather strap is, you know, in my personal opinion, a wonderful matchup with the rest of the dial and the rest of the watch, but it's not something that you'd be restricted to. It is something that you can actually change pretty quickly by yourself. Some other key features about the watch, it does have a little bit of water resistance, only 30 millimeters. It's not something that I would really want to get wet, but if you're walking down the street and it's raining, I mean, you don't really need to be too concerned about the watch itself. Now, I mentioned it has the power reserve, you know, meter on the front. It actually has a 48-hour power reserve. So that's if you just kind of set the watch down and you don't do anything with it, you can expect it to last 48 hours. Now, of course, it's pretty easy to wind, and the fact that you can see the power reserve if you're wearing it, you can just look down and just kind of beef it up and you'll be there in just a couple of seconds. Of course, I believe this is the only one we currently have. It's a unique piece, right? It's not something that we normally see from Omega. Most of the watches that are coming through, I mean, a lot of the other DeVilles just have a completely different style. This one kind of, they took some extra level of craftsmanship and putting some design into it. Like, for instance, it has this smooth bezel is the way that they kind of like term it. But if you look really closely, it almost has like a stair step to it. You know, it adds a little bit of definition to it, a little bit of complexity, but it's something that, you know, when I first saw it, it reminded me of some of the Calatrava bezels. Of course, this is not a Calatrava. This is made out of stainless steel and it's from Omega, not Patek. But I mean, you're getting a watch that's in a similar size that can be, you know, keep up with the same level of accuracy at a complete fraction of the price. I mean, it's definitely worth looking into if you're trying to kind of bridge the gap and expand your collection to incorporate some pieces that would be, you'd feel comfortable wearing in a more formal environment. This is a great place to start. Of course, it is the Omega DeVille Prestige Power is what you can search, or just search Prestige on the website. But this is the only one that we have, so come check it out before it's gone.